welcome to episode 451 of the DFO Rundown. As always, brought to you by Bet365. Hockey fans, check out Bet365's 3-goal early payout. When your team goes up 3, you get paid. It's that simple. Download the app today. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. And hey, if you were a Utah fan, you would have won 8 minutes and 12 seconds into the game last night as they scored 3 goals on their first 3 shots of the game, 8-12 into the game. Good night, Irene. I'm Jason Greger. We welcome in Mike Rupp. And Rupper, it was a wild, I know some of the people on the East Coast might have been in bed for that late start, 10 p.m. Eastern time, but the Utah Mammoth go into Vegas, which used to be a really hard place to win. And Vegas, for the first time in franchise history, get shut out in back-to-back home games. The Sabres, shut them out. And now the Utah Mammoth shut them out.
Yeah, we're starting to see some firsts for this franchise since they've come into the league, the Vegas Golden Knights, that we haven't seen before in a negative way. It just looks like everything that they've always been. There's been years that they've been better and better in certain categories, but they've always had this. I always make reference to it. I've done it probably with you many times. They've had probably one of the more business-like approaches, game in, game out, since they've come into the league. And that's not the case anymore. And there's a lot of things that have slipped, a lot of elements of their game that have slipped. That game, though, I'm concerned. Let's get that out of the way. I am very concerned about the Vegas Golden Knights. I picked them actually to be in the finals at the beginning of the season. Now, can they still do that? Absolutely, they can still do that, but they don't have much time to kind of fix this and right the ship. And there's been a lot of this season where their defensive coverage has lacked, but they haven't been getting goaltending as well. And you would think when goaltending is a struggle, and when you have Adin Hill in the net against Utah in this game, you know that, and you've won with Adin Hill. You know, if you could be predictable for him in the past, he's been good. He's been fighting it all season long. And then they come out and, I mean, I don't put them all. I mean, you like to see your goaltender make one of those first 3 shots saves, but defensive breakdowns, like just running around like chickens with their heads cut off. I mean, the defensive lack of structure is wild right now for the Vegas Golden Knights, and you're not getting the save. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen 3 goals on 3 shots. I'm sure it's happened before. You mentioned what Koskinen had 4-on-4.
Allowed 4-on-4 once.
You would be well aware of that one. But it's you usually don't see that. It's just what's going to give here. I don't know what they do. It's a little bit of the chicken and the egg. Like, you need Adin Hill to be better. You need him to be a starting goaltender for you, a valid one. You got to defend better too. So I'm genuinely concerned about the Vegas Golden Knights right now.
Yeah, well, they're lucky because the Pacific Division, man, the Ducks maybe, but everybody else seems to be, we'll play 1 or 2 good games, and then we'll fall back. Yeah. And like the Oilers are the prime poster child for that. And but Vegas, like the fact they get shut out back to back at home, like they used to dominate at home. Like it was a place, and it's still like a really good atmosphere. They do an unbelievable job of game day presentation. Like if you're a hockey fan and you haven't gone to Vegas for a game, you should. Awesome. Like it's an unbelievable experience there. There's no doubt about that. And they've always won. So, the fans are kind of spoiled. They're kind of like, what do you mean 2 home losses in a row? Never mind 2 home shutouts in a row. They're probably like, what the hell's going on? But you're right. It's been their defense play hasn't been great this year. And I said at the start, I really thought the Nick Hague and Alex Pietrangelo losses were going to be massive, right? Because that's 2 huge defensemen. And Pietrangelo is a guy who's probably a Hall of Famer when he officially retires from the game. And then it's a 3-year window. I think he's a guy that's a Hall of Famer. Like you look at when he was in St. Louis, then he's in Vegas. Like, you know what? When you're the number 1 D-man who plays the most minutes, your team wins Stanley Cups, I'd say you're having a pretty big impact on the game. And, to lose him, and I like they got other guys that are good, but like Rasmus Andersson hasn't worked at all in Vegas. No. Like he is kind of exposed. A lot of times it's like, oh, you know what? Calgary's not that good, but, maybe looking, it's like, hey, maybe Rasmus Andersson isn't that good. And who knows? Maybe it's just because it's first time being traded, but he has not looked good at all there. And like their third pair really misses a guy like Nick Hague, and their first pair misses Pietrangelo, and it's really screwed up their team. And obviously, at anytime Stone's out, the emotional level of your team isn't the same. But you look at Vegas, their only advantage is they're still battling because Edmonton could only win 2 in a row. Like they're allergic to winning 3 in a row right now. But I look at Vegas and Rupper, I don't think that there's a big change coming because I just don't think they've got the defense who can play that much better.
No, I agree. Health is huge for all these teams, and we've seen how different of a team they've been at different stages of the season with Mark Stone, without Mark Stone. I mean, that dates back a couple seasons. I still do believe their forward group, if in a vacuum, if you were to ask me of all the NHL teams forwards, as far as lines 1 through 4, they're all healthy. I like Vegas Golden Knights better than everybody. So that is the big what if. It doesn't matter because it's how they're playing. All those things that come into play. People are going to say Colorado. People are going to say this. The Vegas has that. That's their strength. That is their absolute strength. But you just need to be good and decent in those other areas. And you mentioned Petro, huge loss. I think Nick Hague was a huge loss. Literally big. He's a big body. They had bigger defensemen before. It's an interesting stat, and I don't mean as I love Shea Theodore as a defenseman. I've loved him since he was in Anaheim. I think he's an absolute talent. I saw this stat the other day, and this is a category I don't pay a ton of attention to because it's recorded in a way that's can kind of have some discrepancy. But hits, I saw a thing that I don't know if you saw that like a week or two ago. Yes. Shea Theodore had 1 hit on the season. One hit on the season. How is that even possible? You know what I mean? Like, and I love him. I'm just saying to myself, and that's not why they're losing. He is what he is. And he's been a big strength of theirs for quite some time since he's been in Vegas. But that to me kind of jumped off the page, and it adds to the narrative that I just don't think they're as hard to defend against the way they used to be with Petro, Nick Hague, some of the big bodies they used to have back there.
Well, so look, I'm looking up their page right now. So Shea Theodore has 2 hits on the season in 57 games. He plays 23 minutes a night, 2 hits. Rasmus Andersson in 20 games with Vegas, playing 21 minutes a night, has 3 hits. So that's 20 games, those guys on the ice where you look and say, okay, we got 2 teams. Now, I know the playoffs, everybody's more physical, but it must be their style because the only guy with even more than 93 hits, so they only have 1 defenseman who basically averages 2 hits a game, and that's Jeremy Lauzon. He's way up there at 209, but then it drops to McNabb's at 93, Korzak's at 93, Noah Hannafin's at 30 hits in 58 games. So I'm wondering, it's really because I'll look around at some other of the top teams, and a lot of teams don't have guys with 100 hits. Tampa Bay doesn't have anybody. No. I'm going to look at Colorado, top team. Well, they got Josh Manson, but then nobody else on their team even has more than 34 hits. So I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I don't want to pay too much attention to it because I think
2 is a number that's kind of odd.
It's like plus minus. I don't think plus minus matters, but when you're on a team where guys are plus 15 on the season and you're minus 15, that's a big range. Like that's where you pay attention. Either plus minus for me, if you're really, really high, or you're really, really low, comparatively speaking, with your team, that's the only time it matters. Everything else, I think it doesn't really matter. Hits are the same thing because I think some buildings, an example that happened when I was playing all the way till now, you go out to New York Islanders, and even though they've moved for a couple different arenas over the last number of years, that is a hit factory. You go there, you touch, you breathe on someone, hit, if you're a New York Islander. Because there's once a time where we got bonuses. You could get bonuses for certain things in your contract. I was playing for the Devils, and guys had hit bonuses. And you'd go to the Islanders. Like literally, Greg, when I played, my entire game was the forecheck. All I did is high flippers in the corner, go and hammer defensemen, get the puck back from my teammates, and we would get some cycling and maybe get an opportunity here and there. I would New Jersey, they didn't distribute them like that. So I would sit there. I literally would play like there's no puck on the ice sometimes. And I would finish the season with like 120 hits. And then you'd go and you'd look on the island and you'd have like Matt Martin. You would have like 300 hits. I'm like, it's physically impossible for some of these guys to, and like when you go back to Matt Martin, Cal Clutterbuck in recent years, same thing, run away with hits. I'm like, it is physically impossible for that to happen. So I don't want to put too much on it, but when it's one hit or two hits, I'm like, I've never seen that before. It's kind of crazy. Fact of the matter is, Vegas, I'm concerned. They got us. Like, if there's a team that I need to see improvement on in the remaining 15 whatever games, it's them. If they make it, I think they should. You got them in. You think that they make it?
I still think that they'll find a way to grind it in because the teams chasing them are still 5 points back, right? And we're down to fewer numbers, so like it's harder to make up ground, especially with the 3 points being dished out like candy here in the NHL this year, right? Like the 3-point games. You look in the Eastern Conference every night, somebody's getting overtime or two teams are getting overtime and everybody's getting extra points. And I just looked up like a guy like Lane Hutson, who's, game isn't overly fit. He has 27 hits. But I will say, I think on your hit parade, when Cal Clutterbuck was in Minnesota, Rupper, they handed him out. Like you'd watch a game in Minnesota and you're like, Cal Clutterbuck had 12 hits. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude?
Yeah.
Like,
it's crazy, man. It's crazy how different it was. And guys used to get mad because it was the matter of them getting bonuses or not. And then you'd be in certain buildings. I mean, the NHL has gotten way better with their off-ice officials, because I remember even being in the league where you're playing and you look up at the clock, like the game flow felt even. It felt fine. Maybe we're not at our best, but we're not bad. It's like good road first period. We look up the clock and they have the shots like 18-2. Like, what? There's no chance that it's like that. Like, are they winning the shot? Yeah. I mean, maybe it's like not like that might be an exorbitant amount that I gave there, but like it was outrageous the way some buildings would hand out stats, and you had to be strong between the ears to be like, hey, we're not paying attention to that. We're not going into the period being like it's 18-2 shots, because it's much closer than that.
Well, dude, I can tell you, you could ask anytime the goalie dad in minor hockey's running the shot clock, suddenly you're getting outshot. So that is a wild one, man. I know some associations had to actually change up on who, because it was just getting ridiculous. Like you looked, we gave up 45 shots tonight. Are you kidding me? Right? Like, it was wild at times. So I can see that people just, I think that's a shot. Now the NHL does they count shots a lot differently now. Like they review every shot on goal. Yeah. So it's definitely better. This is more and
they retract. Like how many times we see even after the period, like they retract some shot.
Almost every game.
It's better. It's better now. Much better than what it once used to be.
Now, I do have to apologize because last Friday on the pod, I'd mentioned how Seattle really hadn't done anything. Because I was looking at their stats and I totally forgot, because Bobby McMahon was still stuck in getting his work visa purgatory, so he hadn't played yet. So that was totally an oversight on my part. So sorry, Kraken fans. And McMahon comes in and it's like he heard it because he was on fire early on. But the Kraken, like everybody else, you look all of a sudden, Rupper, in the Pacific, you've got Anaheim, Edmonton, and Vegas, 78, 77, 76 points. LA's at 72, and then the Kraken are now out of the playoffs. They're at 71. But the Nashville Predators, they're 1 point out of the playoffs all of a sudden, Rupper. And they've only been 4-4-2 in their last 10 games. But no one's running away from it at all. It's kind of wide open. The Sharks, their games in hand are down to 1. I've always said games in hand mean nothing unless you actually win them. But, you look at, you got 4 teams within 2 points in now you can say it's a little bit of a turtle derby to get that final wild card spot, LA, Seattle, Nashville, and San Jose. But 4 teams separated by 2 points. They've all played 68 except San Jose. They've played 67. But they've lost 3 in a row, and it looks like the blooms may be off the rose for them a little bit. They just can't defend, kind of what we thought all year long. But do you think the Kraken, Predators, Kings, is there one you like better between the 3? And keep in mind, the Kraken have the tiebreaker because they have 25 regulation wins. The Preds 23. Like the Kings, the only way they get in is if they flat out win it because they only have 18 regulation wins. They're winning no tiebreaker.
Yeah. So it's funny because I sometimes I got to fight with myself on what the heartstrings want, and I've wanted to see the San Jose team make the playoffs all season long. I got to a point yesterday, actually, where I said, I just don't think they're going to be able to do it. I just don't think they're going to have enough in the tank. So that leaves the remaining teams. And I don't love the choice because I don't love how they play. I think they're too unpredictable. They've been terrible at home all season long. But the LA Kings, I don't know. For some reason, I just feel like they're going to find a way to get it done. Maybe it's because I just don't believe enough in Seattle. They don't score enough, but they score more. The crazy thing is they score more than the LA Kings. But I just feel like the Kings find a way to get in. But Nashville's that one outlier to me where I mean, it's not really an outlier. They're 1 point out. They can certainly get in. So it's between those two. I don't think that's rocket science for most. But I'm going to probably go the Kings. I don't know. I just think they're going to find a way to rally around this Kobe story, and they'll find a way to get in.
Yeah, well, they definitely want to get in for him. And hey, the Preds, huge game last night. They were going up against a Kraken. It was announced late that UC Saros was out, and now he's out for, day to day or whatever. And you know what? They got a big win with their backup, and now Annanen's going to have to be the guy moving forward. Yeah. But look at the Preds. Like, they traded away some depth guys at the deadline, but they didn't trade away Stamkos and didn't trade away Marchessault and some of the other names that were rumored. And now they're in it. And that's an organization that, you know what? They want to make the playoffs. Playoff revenue for a team like Nashville is very important, just for their fan base. They've never necessarily been a dominant team, although they did go to the Stanley Cup final in 2016. So, they've been a good franchise for a long time, but they've actually played pretty well. Like, I was looking up their numbers since kind of the middle of December. They've been a top 10 team in the league here for an extended period of time. So it's been a slow ascension back into the playoff race. And I kind of like to see them finish it off here. Like, they're the team that's going, like I said, they're not like going gangbusters because nobody is, but over an extended period of time, they have been actually fairly competitive.
Yeah, and I want to give them credit because when we were talking about trade deadline and really all season long when they were struggling, and even when they turned it around, are they going to purge this lineup? Are they going to, because there was a lot of players that they can move, improve their future and probably get a decent return on, and they didn't do that. So it's a great story in what they're doing. We'll see if they can get in, because I'll tell you what, covering that finals in 17, was that their finals? They against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they were 17 and San Jose was 16.
That was one of the loudest environments I've been in Nashville. That place can get booming. So again, you sit there at the end of the day and you say, well, if a team could squeak in, they're going to get Colorado or Dallas in round one. It doesn't matter, man. You need that experience. You need to have that in those markets. Certain markets need it even more. And I think Nashville falls under that category.
I'll say this, man, the Avs, I think Minnesota is a really tough matchup for Colorado. And if I'm the Avs, I think they really need to finish first. Like, I look at Minnesota and they're just a bigger, heavier team against the Avs. And the Avs are very good, don't get me wrong. But styles are matchups in the playoffs are very important. And I think Minnesota for Colorado is a really tough matchup. You look at the size of their forwards, the style they play. They've obviously got Quinn Hughes can match Cale Makar, right? If you want to look at it that way. Yeah. Obviously, Minnesota doesn't have anybody to match Nathan McKinnon. There's no, I like Kirill Kaprizov, but he's not Nathan McKinnon. He's really good though. But how they play and their big, heavy team against that defense of Colorado, I think that would be obviously a much tougher matchup than Nashville, but even Dallas, I think, matches up better against Minnesota. I'm not saying Colorado can't beat them, but you know how it is, Rupper, in the playoffs. Like, there's just certain teams. Like, LA can never beat Edmonton. It's just a bad matchup for the LA Kings. Doesn't work. And I'm not saying Colorado can't beat them, but I just think Minnesota would be a really tough matchup for the Avs. And that's, that game by Dallas on Wednesday when they won. I know it was in a shootout, but they still gained a point. Now they're 2 back. Like, they've gained a lot of ground here on the Colorado Avalanche, right? Like, it's literally a race. In late January, we were like, okay, the Avs finished first and whatever. There's Dallas and Minnesota are locked in, and it's not the case anymore. So I'm that's another race, man. Like, there's races all over the place. Really, the only team that's not in a race is Minnesota. They're locked into that number 3 spot. They're 6 back of Dallas, and Dallas has a game in hand. Like you're not. It's hard to make out and 7 points in a 14 game span against a good team. So, not impossible, but I just think very difficult. Other than that, even Carolina is battling with Buffalo for first in the Eastern Conference, right? Like there's races everywhere. Tampa Bay is as close to Buffalo as they are to Montreal. And, I still don't think the Habs are going to catch them, but you look at the Habs, they're third place in the Atlantic, but Boston and Detroit have the same amount of points. Montreal just played one fewer game. So it is, the races are all over. Pittsburgh, Columbus, you don't see the Islanders in there because they're 1 point out, but they're tied with Columbus. Like it's, Ottawa had that huge win last night. Brady Tkachuk with 13 seconds to go, like massive. They needed the 2 points in regulation. And it's like there's still 10 teams in the East. Obviously Carolina's in, Buffalo's in, Tampa Bay's in, but the rest, like the Penguins, the Islanders, and Columbus Blue Jackets, are like one of those teams could miss the playoffs, probably with 90-some plus points. But hey, that's happened before. So I know right now in the East, everyone's freaking out about the divisions. But hey, like the last 2 years, it was 91 points to get in the playoffs in the East, right? Teams in the West, 96 points, not have missed it. So it happens. I know we should address it because everybody's like, oh, look at the Pacific Division. It's an off year, no question. I don't doubt that. Like the winner's probably going to be at 94 points, something like that to win the division. Crazy. But, everybody's screaming for 1 to 8. I've done the history lesson on 1 to 8, Rupper. Usually 1 and 2 play 7 and 8, which happens now. And then 3 and 6 and 4 and 5. And most years, they're all 100-point teams separated by 1 point. So 3 to 6 or 2-3, 2-3, it doesn't change anything. It's usually 4 really good teams meeting in the first round. Always has been. It's not going to change. All that's going to change is all that will happen in the West is you would have way more travel. That's all that will happen, right? You would have like Vegas could finish 6th and, they'd have to go to Minnesota, something like that, or Dallas, right? Instead of going to Edmonton or LA. Like that's really the only difference. Like, 106 points to 105 points in a regular season. Are you honestly telling me the 106 point team is way better? Like, give me a break.
Yeah. No, I mean, isn't it funny though? Because we hear this every year and it comes with, I mean, there's always a time. I mean, right now it's the Central and you're going to go through phases of this. I mean, if you go back a few years, this was a problem for people in the Atlantic. And it's not so much anymore in the Atlantic. So you're going to go through phases of this where you're going to have certain fan bases and media in those areas kind of jumping on it. I agree with you. I don't think anything needs to change. Like this year, looking at those matchups in the Central, I mean it stinks. It stinks. But it's to your point. I don't think in the totality of this over a course of 20 years, I don't think you're going to get that much discrepancy in changing things up. So, you mentioned a couple things that when you go, like for an example, let me start with the Dallas Colorado thing that you mentioned. So Dallas wins that game the other night. And so that to me has the potential of being the difference maker we all know about. But Jay Gottinger was the difference in that game. And that's still always going to be something that's going to, and with that, we got to park that because it doesn't matter who has the better goalie going into a playoff series because we've seen Stuart Skinner beat Jay Gottinger a couple times. So and he's been really good in those series. And so anything can happen. I just think that type of game was an example of what could happen if you're, in a matchup, theoretically, probably round 2 with the Dallas, Colorado. Now the other part too, Nathan McKinnon had some really interesting comments after the Pittsburgh loss. I think it was I don't think it was post game. I think it was practice the next day, maybe. He made comments about a bunch of things, kind of airing it out. And I thought it was really intriguing, but he made a comment too about they've got a lot of new bodies playing different positions, trying to find chemistry and how they've got to figure this out down the stretch. And I started looking, they had a line there of Brock Nelson, oh my gosh, what was it? They had the three centers on the line. It was like Brock
Kadri.
Nelson, Kadri, and I don't think it was Nick Waugh. But anyways, they had three centers on the line together. So some of these guys are playing out of position, trying to figure this out, and they're trying to figure out the depth pieces. So on paper, they have extreme depth, but the chemistry hasn't landed yet. Then you go and you mention a team like the Minnesota Wild. Like when this Michael McCarron ad has been awesome for them. Top PK guy, big body, could play center, can play wing. I mean, he had a massive game. Billy Guerin calls the team out. He comes out against the Chicago Blackhawks a couple games ago and sets the tone with a monstrous hit right at the beginning on Connor Bedard, as a phenomenal role-playing first period. And when you look at that team healthy, it's probably a Foligno brother and Michael McCarron fourth line. And so that is, in a situation like that, you say Minnesota may be a problem for Colorado. Those things matter, because all those things you mentioned at the top, a lot of those things will cross each other out. I'd give the goaltending advantage to the Minnesota Wild, but they have some depth pieces that understand how to play those roles. And that could be something I think they can come back and bite Colorado down the stretch. So, or in the playoffs. So it's a fascinating thing, but Colorado, who we thought was the team all season long, feels like one of the teams now.
Yeah, like right now, Lekkonen's out. Landeskog is still out. Now, Connor hasn't played all year, but he's getting close. Ross Colton. So there's 3 of top 9 guys, right? So that would make that would fill it out. And that's probably, you would move someone, down potentially. Like Nichushkin was playing the last game with Natchez and McKinnon. And obviously when Lekkonen's in, he's going to be there. And I think that's the one guy in Colorado who's kind of the wild card for me. He hasn't had a great year to the level that I think they expect, but he's uber talented. And if he can get going, now, of course, he's got to make sure that he shows up on time to the playoff games. So being a joke here, but it's kind of true. So they still have a load of talent, but sometimes you're right. It's getting guys to fit in the right spots. And that can happen. We've seen it, right? We've seen teams kind of limp their way in, struggle to the playoffs. The playoffs come and all of a sudden, boom, man, they're a juggernaut and away they go. So that's what's great about it, Rupper. It's almost like literally the season ends on the 18th or the 16th, excuse me. And then on the 17th, it's like some teams and players, they go in and all of a sudden they're Clark Kent. They come out on the 18th and they got a whole new wardrobe and they're playing totally different. And, some fans like, what the hell happened? And that's why, like, the regular season matters in some ways, but in other ways it doesn't, because the game is different. Like if you don't have a bunch of physical players who can play physical or willing to do it in the playoffs, it's harder to win. And size matters more in the playoffs when all 16 teams are pretty good. Now, all of a sudden, if I've got Joe, who's 5'9", and I got Bob, who's 6'3", Bob and Joe are equal in skill set. Well, guess what? Bob wins a few more battles just because, and on average anyway. So I still wouldn't want to face Colorado in the first round if I was any team. Like you'd try to avoid it, but somebody's going to have to do it. And as we've seen in previous years, man, big teams get knocked off. Like no one thought Boston would lose that year. No one thought Tampa Bay would lose when they lost. Heck, no one thought Colorado, the Jets thought they would lose. So once you get in, baby, anything can happen. And there are a few teams I want to ask you about that. Like, what do you make of the Ducks? And they're a young team. Cutter Gauthier. I know you got some thoughts on him. So we'll kind of get to the Ducks on how do you think they react in the playoffs?
It's interesting because I think that the Ducks have a really nice blend of, we've said, veteran players, youthful players. They've got size, they've got grit, they've got skill. They've got some players that are pretty green that have not been to the playoffs, which sometimes can be good for you. Sometimes it can be bad for you. I find them to be a very interesting team. They've got a goaltender that I think can get really hot in Lucas Dostal. So that's the one for me. But when I sit there and I think like, all right, if there's a team, you got Coach Q, you wonder what kind of magic he can bring to the table as well. But when you go into a playoffs with like Jacob Trouba had some rough seasons with the Rangers, but Jacob Trouba in the playoffs was pretty damn good and effective. Like, he was one of those players who found another level. At times would knock out players on the other team as far as knock them out of the lineup or the series. But he has that ability. He has that experience. You go John Carlson now on the back end. I find them to be an interesting group. We know that Radko Gudas is out, but he also could be pretty effective in those playing in the trenches. And then the forward group, though, this is the thing for me as far as generating and kind of getting some offense. They've got big bodies. They've got Chris Kreider. They've got Leo Carlson. They've got, Beckett Seneca. He doesn't shy away from anything. Cutter Gauthier is the one you mentioned I wanted to talk about. I mean, Alex Killorn, the experience and the size. They have the size. So all those things you mentioned, they have a little bit of everything. So they're an interesting group for me in the playoffs because I can see a world where they go on a bit of a run. And Cutter Gauthier is the one I wanted to mention, though, because he got just the other day, what did he get? His 35th goal, I want to say, in the season. So he's got 61 points in 67 games. And I think he's going to be in the conversation for Rocket Richard trophy for years. Like this kid, he's a natural goal scorer. He can score in many different ways. His shot is top shelf. I got to meet him. He came in studio with NHL Network earlier this season. He's a big boy. He's powerful. So this is one I think it's really important for Anaheim and a player like that as far as their development, just to get that playoffs and see what he can do in there. And maybe that can, even if they don't have a ton of success, maybe that can push him to even crank it up another level. But I think when we're starting to see, Leon's always going to be in that conversation. Connor, David Pastrnak. I think Ovi's kind of fallen off with that. Austin Matthews will be in that conversation for leading the league in goals. Look out for this guy. I think Tage Thompson will be in that as well. I'd put him in that same category, though. Like, I think he's going to start being this high 40s, 50s, maybe even higher than that goal scorer in this league. So that's one. His hands are absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, buddy, I like your view. I hadn't even thought about it because, hey, there is going to be a wave of new guys eventually. It always happens in the NHL where there's a little bit of a change in the guard, the guys who have been at the top and always kind of battling it out for the Hart and the Art Ross and the Morse or the Rocket Richard. And, slowly it changes. It takes a while though, Rupper. It takes a while for those like, guys at the top, like Nathan McKinnon's been there now a few years. Obviously, Leon Draisaitl's being a guy who's won the scoring title. Ovi was pretty much the man for a long time. And, it takes a while to transition. So it might be a few more years, and you wonder, is Austin Matthews going to get back in there at some point for the goal scoring title? But Cutter Gauthier is someone he's really just kind of starting to scratch the surface on what the Ducks, I think, will be a team to reckon with in the future even more. I like Dostal in the playoffs, I think can definitely help. The one thing about the Ducks is right now, the reason I'm leery of them in the playoffs is they have no track record of showing they can shut it down defensively. Because in the playoffs, you know what? Some games you got to win high scoring, but lots of games you got to win 2-1, 3-1. And they give up a lot of shots and they give up a lot of chances. And they're a younger team. That's normal. And that takes a long time to learn. I've seen lots of teams who are close. Then they lose in round one and they lose in round one. And then they don't, it's not we lost 1 year, Rupper. Now the next year we're going to be great defensively. And that's going to be the hardest part for the Ducks team to learn because it's such a commitment and it's kind of habit changing for lots of teams. Like, Boston was lucky because they had a Bergeron, right? And he did it and Kopitar did it. So that probably helped them a little bit. But even LA, look when Kopitar was drafted and look when LA got good. It wasn't right away. So that's going to be the challenge for the Ducks is who are going to be their leaders that take that learning when to kind of not take that extra step and be below the puck. And it's hard.
Yeah, no, it is hard. But to go off of what I was saying before, like the playoffs can very easily turn into a turf battle. And I think they have guys that can do that. So they're not this offensive team that doesn't play. They are an offensive team that doesn't play a ton of good team defense. but they're not one that does it and can't have other facets of their game. Like, I don't even know who to use as an example. Like, there's some teams that don't have, like, I'll use Montreal as an example. Montreal is they can put some points on the board. They lack defensive structure in a lot of different ways. The difference between these two teams is there will become a point in the playoffs where you take a puck theoretically and toss it in the corner, and you send players in the corner to go retrieve that puck. Anaheim has players that will retrieve it more times than not. I don't think Montreal has those players. Ton of skill, ton of talent. They might be able to pull off an unbelievable play one or two times coming out of that corner with the puck. But when it turns into a turf battle, they've got big bodies that can kind of even the playing field. And that's a lot of frustration fans have with the NHL playoffs sometimes, is it evens the playing field a little bit too much, as far as you get role players that you said, like, they kind of turn into Superman, and then star players, maybe the edge is taken off of them a little bit, but that's the name of the game. I think the Ducks might be able to answer that pretty well.
All right. Let's bring in Pat Puff to the pod. Patty, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Let's do some fill in the blank today, brought to you by Bet365. Hockey fans, check out Bet365's 3-goal early payout. When your team goes up 3, you get paid. It's that simple. Download the app today. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Now, the first question I have for you guys, I feel like there's some discrepancy here, and maybe it's a bit of a long shot. But we're taking a look at the Eastern Conference, and to win the Eastern Conference, Buffalo is plus 800. Now, numbers are numbers. They're tied right now with the Carolina Hurricanes, and Tampa is back a couple, and even if they win their games in hand, they're just tied. So what percentage would you give the Sabres to win the conference at plus 800? It just seems a little bit off for where they are in the standings, Gregs.
Dude, I don't understand it. That's an all-dayer for me. Not even a hesitation. They've been the hottest team in the NHL since December 1st. Like, this is not a 2-week, oh, you know what, we're just hot. No, they continue to win. Like, look, they got back-to-back shutouts here on the road. Their goaltending's great. They can score. They're big. They're physical. I think that Tampa Bay game really galvanized them even more. And man, who's not going to be putting that date on their calendar on April 7th to watch them play again before the playoffs? But I'd give Buffalo a better chance than Carolina and Tampa Bay at this point.
I mean, Pat, with that value, like, why you got to go Buffalo plus 800? Yeah. So, I mean, that's, even if you don't even believe that they're going to potentially win, like, that's great value for where they're at and what they've been doing lately. So I'd be all over that one.
Yeah, it's wild. Like, for a small unit or whatever, just for the fun story, it seems like a good one to ride along with. So I noticed that one there. The next one I have for you, Cole Caulfield. You guys have been talking about the Montreal Canadiens. 40 goals this season. His previous high is 37. My question, fill in the blank. What percent chance would you give him on getting 50 this season with 14 games left? But the question I'm more concerned about is percent chance he gets to 50 next season, knowing where he is at now, and he's potentially just going to keep getting better. What do you think, Robert?
So for this season, I mean, 10 goals left that's going to be tough. Mm-hmm. I will say, to get to 50 this season, I'll say I'll put it at a 20% chance that he gets that, and I think that might be a little high. But I'll say for next season to get 50. I mean, seeing the progression of him and as a player has been spectacular. So I think I'll put it at 60% chance for next year at 50. I feel pretty good about that. I feel like that's a pretty fair number. It's when players have career years, it's always tough to have another career year the next year. But I think this guy is a natural goal scorer, and he's got the capabilities of doing so.
Well, 50 this year, I'd give him a pretty low percent. I'd love to see it, but 10 and 14 down the stretch is hard. And, is he going to play all 14 if Montreal clinches a playoff spot late? So say no. And even, man, like, we're seeing one guy a year score 50. Last year was Draisaitl. This year it's McKinnon. So I would say 30% chance that next year he scores 50. Not because I don't think he's talented, because it's damn hard in today's NHL. And is he going to be able to score that many overtime goals again? That's always there's lots to go into it. The Habs are really good, but 50 goals is hard. The Habs haven't had a 50-goal scorer since Stéphane Richer in 1990. They hadn't had a 40-goal score since 1994, which is that shocked me that they actually had like the longest drought of scores. But even 50 goals, man, like it's hard. There's lots of teams that haven't had a 50-goal scorer in this century yet. So.
Yeah, it's exciting times, and teams are finding players that are just going nuclear right now. So it's fun to watch. The last question I have, it's a bit of low-hanging fruit, and you guys talked about it a little bit, but the Pacific Division, I got to jump back to it because it's just such an anomaly, and there's teams like Edmonton at plus 500, Vegas. I mean, is there any value at Oilers at plus 500 to win this division? I think so. Where do you guys sit with the Pacific Division right now? Who do you think's going to
yeah, it is. It's a turtle derby. There's no question about it. I could see why they're leaning towards the Ducks. The only advantage Edmonton has is they play the most games against the Pacific Division. So like they play Vegas twice and they've won 8 of 9 against them. They play San Jose again. They play Seattle. They play the Ducks, and they play a lot of those games at home. They play the Kings. So just because if the division's weak, you want to play as many games as you can against those teams. So that's kind of maybe their only advantage. But yeah, like the Ducks, there's no value there at plus 100, and they're only 1 point up. So yeah, like even Vegas is odd to me. They're in third, and Edmonton's probably the best value there. The Kings are too far back. The Sharks, no chance. So on a value play, it's probably Edmonton, but I think the Ducks probably have the best chance today to win the division because Edmonton hasn't shown you they can win 3 games in a row all year. They've done it once. It's wild. And it's not like they get close. Like last night was another prime example. They win 2, they play great, and they just, their coach tried to say they played well. I don't know. We were watching a different game. The week before they beat Vegas, they beat Colorado. They're playing great. They get destroyed in Dallas. Like that's their MO. They can't play 3 good games in a row right now. It's wild.
I would agree with you. The best value is Edmonton in this one. I just caught up in the difference between the Sharks and the Kraken. You got plus 4,000 and plus 12,500 for the Kraken, and Kraken are 1 point ahead of the Sharks in the standings. So it's just no respect for Seattle at all. But I agree. I don't think either team would be a good bet. But if you really want to shoot for the stars, the Seattle Kraken winning that division, that's a pretty good value there. But Edmonton's the most realistic one. Yes.
Yeah, I just see it similar to the Buffalo winning the East, like a plus 800 for Buffalo, plus 500 for a team that is right there and has a ton of experience to do it. I just didn't mind the plus 500.
That's a nice find
to me.
Yeah. That's a nice find by you.
Well, sometimes I don't have the best, thinking questions, but sometimes I got the value ones. So we'll take that for today. And that's all I got for you. Fill in the blank, brought to you by Bet365.
We've talked a lot about the West. Let's move over to the East, Rupper. And it's a wild race for virtually every position except first in the Metro. The Hurricanes got that one pretty much comfortably locked up, 8-point lead with 14 games to go. It's going to be really hard for the Penguins to catch them. Buffalo and Carolina, there is a race though for first in the conference, which, I don't know, like is a team going to blow their brains out to finish number 1 in the conference? Probably not, but Tampa Bay's still not out of it either. They have 2 games in hand. They're 4 points back of both the Sabres and the Hurricanes. So a good race there. Montreal, 84 points. Boston, 84 points. Detroit, 84 points. Pittsburgh, 84 points. Columbus, 83. The Islanders, 83. And, you look at Montreal, Detroit, and Boston, they're all really close. But because the Islanders are 1 point back of them, they're concerned that they could knock them out and we could have a 4-4. Ottawa is like that Brady Tkachuk goal keeps them in it, but they're 5 points out. They do have one game in hand, but it's pretty tough. I think if they miss it, it's going to be due to goaltending. That's just a lot of ground to make up when like they're 7-2-1. They got 15 out of 20 points in their last 10 games. And they still have only gained, I think it's like they did gain 5 points in the Red Wings. So I guess if you do that the next 10 games, but the Red Wings got caught back last night. And Dylan Larkin's maybe closer. When you look at those teams, Boston, Detroit, and Montreal, and Pittsburgh, and the Islanders, and Columbus, like Columbus is on an absolute bender right now. Is there a team like Pittsburgh? They kind of got through the meat of their order without Crosby and Malkin. Like I'd kind of be shocked now if they fall out.
Yeah, I would be too. I have the way it stands today. I have the Metro being Carolina, Pittsburgh, Columbus, 1, 2, 3. Last night was a catastrophic night for the New York Islanders. I mean, the way that game went down against the Sens not only keeps the Ottawa Senators quasi alive, but it also it just buried you. You went from third in the Metro to now outside the playoffs, and just the way it kind of went down, and it just wasn't good vibes in this team. Just can't defend, and they picked the wrong times to have these lapses. So, that's one for me. I think the Islanders get back in. I think they find a way. This is just temporary. This is the way the standings are because of how tight everything is. You're going to have a night where teams are going to be in, drop out. You got to fight your way back. On the flip side, it couldn't have gone any worse for the Islanders because you have a team like Detroit that's down 1-0 going into the third, and they ramble off 3 goals in the third. That was a pretty vulnerable team, Detroit, coming into last night's game. They still are. They're not in a great spot, but I think they figure it out. So that leaves me the one team I think that finds their way out that's in maybe today. It's the Boston Bruins. And I think the Islanders go in. So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't think there's going to be enough runway here for Ottawa, like you mentioned. And Columbus, I think Columbus is, I think if it wasn't for the Buffalo Sabres, I think people would be talking a lot more about what Columbus is doing right now.
Well, they were right with Buffalo. They were both at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, tied with 34 points back on, I think it was November 30th or whatever it is. And, now they've moved up into a playoff spot. The Sabres are right at the top of the conference, which is an amazing feat, literally from worst to first, if they can finish it off. And there are some big games, though, this weekend. There's big games in the West, too. But in the East, the Penguins play the Jets. The Jets are on life support. I think that loss last night pretty much puts them out. But the Blue Jackets host the Kraken, who are really struggling. Then you've got the Islanders in Montreal. That is a huge game. The Bruins are in Detroit. That starts an hour later on Saturday night at 8 Eastern. You also have the Senators are taking on the Leafs, which is obviously a big rivalry game. The Leafs have nothing to play for, but that teams get up for certain games when they got nothing to play for, and that would be one. And then like the Penguins, they play back-to-back. They play the Jets. Then they got the Hurricanes. And the Blue Jackets and the Islanders both play back-to-back, and they play each other on Sunday night. So they're this weekend, like everything's so close, but you have a good weekend if you're the Islanders and you beat the Habs and you beat the Blue Jackets. Well, suddenly you're looking good. But if you lose both of those games, like that could put you in a real tough hole really quickly. And so that's why like the Islanders, and Matthew Schaefer got to 21 goals now. He's alone in third place for most goals by a rookie defenseman. Barry Beck's at 22. Brian Leach is at 23. They could make the playoffs. He could set the record. Like there's lots to look for. But this is, without question, the biggest weekend of the Islanders season coming up with games Montreal and Columbus.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And then, all of them are with everything so close. You can argue that Detroit-Boston matchup you mentioned. There's a lot at stake here. But yeah, this is kind of where it's at, I think, for the Islanders this weekend in general. If it goes, that's what the cruelty of the NHL right now with how tight everything is and the parity is. You can have a great weekend, which is fantastic. You might not really be able to tell too much in the standings, but if you have a bad weekend, that could be it. And that doesn't seem very fair, but that's the way that life is in the NHL right now. But it's we're getting to that point now where what I thought it was it yesterday, or I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, where it was 1 month until the playoffs start. Like it's going to fly by down the stretch here.
Oh, it will be fly. You mentioned the Blue Jackets. I don't know if you saw the Fantilli clip after the game, because he was asked about, hey, you know what, you guys are finally in a playoff spot. And he was like, what? That's great. Like, because the game had just ended. He probably didn't know what happened on the out of town scoreboard, but you could just see like the genuine excitement. Like, what? Because I would think for a team, like, I know that the players, they check the standings as much as the fans, especially this time of year. You're looking, exactly what's going on. You're checking it out. Like, you're a fan of the game, of course. It's your livelihood. You're going to know what's happening. He wouldn't know every game of every score while his game's going on, but That's really where it's at now. And it's a looking at it. But the other thing, Rupper, there are a few teams that are out of it. And you had a chance to watch the Washington Capitals and the third Hutson brother. Quinton's played a few games in the NHL. Obviously, Lane's dominating in Montreal. And Cole Hutson, who was a draft pick of the Capitals. And by the way, they've got a lot of good young players coming in. Their cupboards are stocked pretty well. What was your first impression of Cole Hutson for Washington fans?
So let me preface it with this, and this will kind of allude to where I was thinking. I know it's early and lots of things can happen. I'm watching Cole Hutson play and went through all of his shifts yesterday. The game was a couple nights ago. And I'll give you the end thought is that I started thinking to myself, man, USA Hockey is going to have some tough decisions moving forward. And when you're talking about, it's eventually going to get to the point where you've got Quinn Hughes. I ultimately think you're going to eventually get to the point where Luke Hughes is going to be in the conversation for Team USA. You're going to have Lane Hutson. He is in the conversation now. I think Cole is going to be in that conversation. My point being in all this is there's a lot of, and I wouldn't put Luke Hughes in here because he's decent size, a lot of undersized defensemen that are fantastic. And that's what Cole Hutson is. So, so just to give you a glimpse, he gets his first NHL goal, obviously, of an empty netter right there. He was phenomenal in his first game. We were ripping through his first period shifts, his body language, the things he does. I mean, honestly, and I hate to, I'm not comparing him. I'm just saying they're very Quinn Hughes-esque. They're very Lane Hutson-esque. He has all those elements of his game. I mean, his vision, his composure with the puck, his aggressiveness in the offensive zone defensively, where he's sitting in on a winger, knowing that he's got support, his intellectual game in game one, it looked weird. It looked like he's been in the league for 10 years. So again, only one game. We're not crowning anybody anything, but man, it was a impressive first game. I think this kid's going to be a stud.
Well, I love the play, and we were just playing the videos you were talking that, Connor McMichael's pointing at him like, you shoot, kid. Because, here's the thing. Imagine that. It's your first NHL game. You got a 3-on-1 with an empty netter, and you've got the greatest goal scorer of all time, who, by the way, you could have assisted on his one. Like, if Cole Hutson, like, yeah, I want my first goal, but guess what? I could have assisted on his 1,000th goal between in a regular season and the playoffs for Ovechkin. But, those guys are like, hey, man, like, we're pretty confident Ovi's going to score again. And I just thought that was kind of nice because usually guys on a 3-on-1 empty netter, you're passing the puck, right? Unless you're shooting for a hat trick. And, they're pointing from center, like, no, kid, you're not passing to us. You're shooting. And obviously it just has to be a thrill. Like, you come in your first NHL game and your teammate's Alex Ovechkin, who is, and I know, like, right? Who knows? Ovi hasn't said if this is last year or not. You traded John Carlson. We'll see. I saw you talked about stats earlier, Rupper, about Shea Theodore. What about the stat that Ovi hasn't had a defensive zone start this year for the Washington Capitals? Now, I would like to look at that and see, okay, and starting a shift. But I'm like, okay, so he hasn't started a shift. But what if he's on the ice and they ice the puck? Like, you're still in the defensive zone, right? So it's a little bit different. Like, you can't tell me Ovi hasn't been on the ice for an icing call all year long. He's obviously started, in the defensive zone at some point, but it's one of his shifts. He's never started there. Obviously he's slowed down. I don't think anybody who watches the Capitals doesn't see that, but he's still a guy who could score 30 freaking goals, right? At this stage of his career. And like, I wonder, do you think Ovi does a Gretzky and at game 8 he announces, I'm done, and he gets 2 games left? You think that's what he does? Because if he does, I'm going to say it right now, I have the utmost respect for it. I much prefer that than a season-long goodbye. I don't like the season-long goodbye. I think it's too much. You kind of force the other team. Everybody's got to shake your hand and different things like that. And I like 2 games. I think that's more than enough time.
I don't want to see, I don't want to see it because I want to see Ovi still playing and running at different, titles as far as scoring. I think the game is so much better with him in it, and I'd love for him to continue to play. But yeah, if we're calling the spade a spade, he has slowed down quite a bit. in other areas of his game that would go back to what you said about not getting those optional defensive zone starts. Like I understand that. But yeah, I mean, I would have a lot of respect for that because you usually don't see that, especially in professional sports nowadays. But I don't know. There's still something in me. But the one thing you always got to go back to when you're talking about the greats of the greats in sports is I find that the the normal human like me would be like, oh, Ovi should keep playing. Like he's still 30 goals or whatever. Ovi's not used to scoring 30 goals. You know what I mean? Like Ovi's a 50 goal man. He's been his entire career basically. So we can't look at it that way because I'm looking at it like, he's scoring 30 goals. Why would you stop playing when you're scoring 30 goals? The greats, when they stop being great and dominant, they got a problem with that. And that's where the unknown is because I'm not inside of his head. Is he Alex Ovechkin that we've seen for 20 years? No, still a hell of a player and with scoring goals. That's going to be the kind of X factor, I think, for me in decision making of some of these guys. Because like same thing, you mentioned it too. Wayne was still really effective as a player, but he wasn't almost a 200-point player anymore. You know what I mean? It got to the point where in his mind, he wasn't dominating like he felt like he needed to fulfill a certain void. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Ovi, but I would be shocked if he did that.
Like Wayne, I think a lot of people forget he had 90 points his second last year. He was still top 5 in scoring. But his last year in the league is where it dropped off. He had 9 goals, and he had the greatest line ever. He goes, I had 9 goals this year. I used to do that in a weekend. And so I respected it, right? Like, you know what? Could he have played to get to 2,900 points and get 43 points? He could have, right? Because he still had 60 points. I think if you look at it, it was still in the top 45 scores or 40 scores of the NHL that year. But for him, you know what? Like I think sticking around too long, whether you're a player or a broadcaster, it really, like when I hear people talk about, they're, what's it going to mean to your legacy? Like no one cares about someone's, like if you're a great player, you're a great player, right? And if it's 1 year where you tail off, but if guys stick around for 5 years, Rupper, that's when it becomes like, that's what people remember because it's 5 years. 1 year at the scheme thing, no one's going to remember that because there's 20 years of greatness. And I see it in athletes. You know, I'm sure there's people at any job where you're just like, oh man, Mary or Bob is sitting around here and God, he's terrible. He or she can't do the job anymore. And you don't want to get there. So I think that a lot of the best players have that self-awareness of like, you know what? I'm just not that guy anymore. So I don't want to do it. And Ovechkin, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Like he's never really been, and that's why it's funny about Kopitar, because Kopitar might be the quietest, most polite guy I've ever met. That's why I was kind of shocked when he announced his year-long retirement thing. Like I don't think it's a good look for any player or anybody. Like you just don't need that much time. You know, it's kind of uncomfortable. But Ovi, it would be unfortunate if he left because like he's got a chance. Like 30 might be tough. He's got to get 5 goals down the stretch here, but he could easily do it. He's one of the hottest goal scorers ever. Yeah. And remember though, Rupper, I think it was year 7, 8, 9 for Ovi. He only scored 30. So if he gets to 30, he might say, hey, that's still pretty good. Because in some of my years, remember that when people thought, oh, Ovi's done being a 50 goal scorer. You could go back, man. If you want to have that hashtag old takes exposed, you go read what people wrote about Alex Ovechkin in those years when he went. I know what was really the 2 years of 2011 and 12 when he scored 32 and 38. And people were like, oh, he's done, man. He's never going to be a 50 goal scorer again. Man, nothing. That's like the worst take on the planet.
Yeah, no, it's, I wonder though, that's a good point. If he doesn't get to 30, is that some sort of bar for him and a realization for him to be like, this isn't how I want to do it? I don't know. I have no idea.
Lastly, before we go, the Blue Jackets are on that run, and how much of that do you equate to to their head coach, man they call Bones, and that decision by Don Waddell, who admitted that he went to bed and he had like 4 other names on his list, and then he woke up the next day and he was like, hey, maybe I should call Rick, see what he thinks. And obviously it's worked out incredibly well. Why do you think it is? What is it about him that has worked and complemented that dressing room in Columbus so well?
So I'm a huge Rick Bowness guy. One of my favorite coaches I ever had in the NHL. He was interim head coach in Arizona when I got traded there. And I always joke with Bones, and every time I talk about him, because I was with him for about five minutes, real quick tenure with him, and the impact he made on me was, I just told you, like, he's one of my favorites that I've ever had. So he has this ability we interviewed Charlie Coyle the other day, and we're kind of asking him about what Bones has meant. And he has this ability to connect with players. The communication is the one word that comes up nonstop with Blue Jacket players now. The communication that he brings, the belief he'll walk by you. He will walk by you in the hallways of the arena or the locker room, and he's going to talk to you, and it might not even be anything about hockey. He genuinely cares about his people, and just has this, I don't know, he's got this almost like a proud father influence that he kind of has. And guys want to go to war for him, want to go through a wall for him. And I think a big thing there too, that I want to give some props to Don Waddell in that process too, is when that hiring went down, it was, you don't go hire Rick Bowness out of retirement. He's doing a great job with TNT and just living his best life. He's got grandkids and, his family life. He's a family man. You don't bring him out with, we want to, this is a 3-year plan to get us back and kind of retool, rebuild. Like, no, they were very, very blatantly saying, this is to get us back into the mix this year. And I think having that type of conviction in your decision making goes and permeates down through your players, that it wasn't like, let's see how the next little bit goes. We'll decide. Like, they were very adamant. And to the degree too, where like Charlie Coyle has been phenomenal since Rick Bowness has taken over. And you're telling me, with the market that we've talked about, trade deadline, we're talking about the market for the summer, which Charlie Coyle's still pending UFA, but the market that was at center ice here, they could have probably gotten an incredible return on a Charlie Coyle, but they committed to, this is the year, our group, we're pushing forward. They go and they get Connor Garland. This is some good stuff that they've done. Mason Marchment that they've gone and gotten. So I just want to give them a lot of credit. The conviction that they've made their decisions with and kind of carried through with that. There's no gray area. I think that has a lot to do with it as well. Believing in the group. But Rick Bowness, man, like he'll make you believe in something, and he'll make y'all believe in it, and you'll all be pulling the same way. So that's something that he's been very successful with.
Speaking of Columbus, so I was looking at their numbers. 19, 19, and 7 in their first 45 games. They were 28th in the NHL. Technically tied for 26th in points percentage, if you want to go that high in points. Okay, sure. Since then, they made the change. Bowness comes in 17, 2, and 4. Now, they have the second most points, Rupper, but they have the best points percentage because they have 2 points less than Buffalo, but Buffalo's played 3 extra games during that run. They got like an 826 points percentage during this run from Rick Bowness. And the other thing is, I looked at it. The other team, who is tied with them at in 26th to 28th place on January 11th? The Anaheim Ducks.
Oh.
No, the Ducks.
Anaheim. Wow.
And since then, Columbus, of course, has the best record. Buffalo's second. The Ducks are 5th, tied for 4th, actually, with Carolina. So as good as Columbus has been, we're probably not, maybe even we're overlooking the Ducks a little bit here, because you know what? Now, Columbus is obviously 17, 2, and 4, and the Ducks are 16, 6, and 1. So, Columbus has just found ways to get that extra point more. But both of those teams, now the Ducks didn't make a coaching change or anything, but they've kind of figured it out too here. And teams getting hot going into the playoffs always matters. I shouldn't say always, usually matters for teams. And so the Ducks, the Sabres, the Blue Jackets are teams of Pittsburgh Penguins have really been on a roll here since mid-January. And we'll see who can finish it off, man. We got 14 games to go. We're under a month left in the regular season. Basically just under 4 weeks left for teams. Some of the East teams are done on the 14th of April. The West teams, I think there's 6 games in the final night. 12 teams are playing on that Thursday. The playoffs we know are starting, and it will be Eastern teams for sure. Probably Carolina, looking at their schedule because they're done on the 14th. That will go on the 18th. And that's wild, man. Like, that's a quick time. And by next Friday, when we look at the standings, we could see, like, the Islanders this weekend, man. I wish them luck because it's a massive weekend for them. The Nashville Predators have gotten right that back in it. Can they continue on? And, you know, who's going to fall out? So this is awesome. Every night in the NHL right now, to me, is must-watch TV because there's always a game. If you don't have the NHL package, you should get it because there's always a game that has playoff implications. And usually now there's 3, 4. Like last night, there was only one game that didn't have any real playoff implications. 10 out of 11 had it. And, you know, Friday night, tonight, there's, Utah and Anaheim, I guess, because there's a chance they could actually play each other in the opening round if the Ducks win their division. And Utah's obviously kind of locked in that number 1 wild card. So there's that game. And other than that, you know, the Hurricanes are playing Toronto. So I guess because they're in first, and Avalanche, that's their game in hand on Dallas. They play Chicago. But this weekend is games galore. So Saturday, Sunday, can't wait. I know you'll be breaking it down on the NHL Network, and we'll talk about it next week, Friday, with you on the Rundown. Have a great weekend, Rupper.
Yep, you too, buddy. Enjoy the games. Can't wait to see which teams are teetering after the weekend.
That's the Rundown, as always, brought to you by Bet365. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games.
Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.